Do you love going to Broadway shows, but can't go now because Broadway's closed? Join tour guide Tim and Belasco too as they bring Broadway history to you. Grab your Broadway passport for what's in store on your Virtual Broadway Tour.
This week's theater, the Samuel J. Friedman, looks nearly identical to the day it opened in 1925. The Channing brothers were expanding their theater portfolio quickly. On the heels of the Richard Rodgers, then the 46th Street Theater, they opened the Biltmore, as the Friedman was originally called, before heading just across the street to open the Brooks Atkinson shortly thereafter. All three were designed by my favorite Broadway architect, Herbert J. Krapp. The Friedman is one of Broadway's more underappreciated theaters, as very few big hit shows have played here over the last 95 years. But one show made its mark on Broadway here for 4 years, heralding in rock music, hippies, and yes, nudity. That's right, the iconic rock musical, Hair. The show began its life as the inaugural production of Joseph Papp's Public Theater 40 blocks south, opening to mixed critical reviews, but rave reviews from theatergoers. The show's writers, James Rado and Jerome Ragney, playing the lead characters of Claude and Burger respectively, created a tribal love rock musical that crossed over into mainstream culture addressing the politics of the day. Its non-traditional score made the production the first category-defining rock musical, which would lead the way for many other groundbreaking musicals in the decades to come. And with our Broadway revival in 2009 replicating the final be-in that invited audience members on stage, a whole new generation was introduced to a show that forever changed musical theater history at the Friedman. "40 years before hippies and rock music invaded the Biltmore, another show created waves on opening night. In 1928, Mae West's Pleasure Man began performances. The show was centered around the world of burlesque and featured a 55-member cast, including many men portraying women. On October 1st, 1928, the first performance, a team of New York police officers appeared backstage at the end of the performance and charged the entire cast with public indecency. 1 year prior, the Padlock Law of 1927 had been created, making cross-dressing in public a crime. With the cross-dressing on stage, the police arrested the entire cast, including Mae West, who showed up to the precinct to post bail because she had written the play. At the second performance, a matinee the following day, the police arrived again. A huge crowd of New Yorkers, having missed the first arrest the night before, but hearing it was going to happen again, showed up to watch. With the cast still in costume this time around, they were carted away in paddy wagons. In 1930, 2 years after the original arrests, a trial was held. Mae West took the opportunity to read the entire script of Pleasure Man as her testimony. It ended in a hung jury and charges were dropped. It remains one of Broadway's shortest runs and perhaps one of the most notable. Only half of the run took place at the theater. The other half was in a courtroom downtown. In November of 1987, the Landmarks Preservation Committee declared architect Herbert J. Krapp's interior Adam S. design a landmark worth preserving. Just 1 month later, firefighters responded to an alarm set off at the theater at 2:30 a.m. When they arrived, the entire stage and front portion of the orchestra seating were ablaze. When the fire was finally extinguished, a suspicious substance was discovered on stage and the case was deemed an act of arson. With no interested tenants, the theater sat empty for the next 10 years. After producing Beauty and the Beast on Broadway, Disney was looking for their own theater for their next production, The Lion King. At the time, the two available theaters were the Biltmore and the New Amsterdam on 42nd Street. They opted to tour the Biltmore first. When they arrived, much of the 1925 facade was still intact. The interior was a different story. Much of the charred remains and half-melted seats remained from a decade prior. Sewage and stagnant water had taken over the orchestra section, with rats swimming throughout. In the mezzanine above, they discovered a colony of vagrants who had created a home for themselves in the dilapidated theater. Disney opted to renovate the New Amsterdam instead, leading to a full revitalization of 42nd Street and beyond. Who then would come to the Biltmore's rescue? At the start of the 21st century, things still looked bleak for the Biltmore, but hope was on the horizon. The Manhattan Theater Club, now a New York theatrical institution, began as a small theater company under the leadership of Lynn Meadow and Barry Grove. Concentrating their efforts off-Broadway, beginning in 1970, MTC eventually moved into the basement space at City Center off-Broadway in 1984 before setting their sights on Broadway. In 2001, they acquired the Biltmore and set to work restoring what was left of the interior. Ground was broken in December of 2001, and mounds of glitter were symbolically tossed in the air, beginning a renovation that would ultimately cost $35 million to restore life to the theater. Some of the original plaster of the proscenium arch was still intact and was restored by the incredible team at Evergreen Architectural Arts. To help raise the mammoth renovation costs, the naming rights to the theater were sold. Many different options were pursued, but the theatrical cream rose to the top, so to speak, when a contribution was made by Jane Friedman, daughter of Broadway publicist Samuel J. Friedman. After a distinguished career working on many hit Broadway productions, Jane now gets to see her father's name in lights on Broadway, right where it belongs. Hello! Happy Saturday noon on Broadway. Thanks for joining. Can you believe it's like already another Saturday? I feel like, one, it's been 8,000 years since last Saturday, but also I feel like we just did this. So welcome back for those who are joining us again. We are coming to you every week live from New York City as part of our Virtual Broadway Tour Series featuring one theater every single week. This week, we are joined by the incredible, the very talented Jonathan Burke from Choir Boy at the Samuel J. Friedman. For those that aren't familiar with me or Broadway Up Close, my name is Tim Dolan. I'm an actor and the owner of Broadway Up Close Walking Tours in New York City. For the last 10 years, our tours have unearthed history, ghost stories, fun facts, and all the things you didn't know that you really want to know about the 41 Broadway theaters here in New York City. We have an entire team that I call my green team of actors and stage managers that are your eyes and windows to the world of the insanity of our theatrical lives. And then in addition to our 5 exterior tours that we've done for the last 10 years, we also have a gift shop that I opened in the middle of Times Square that has a big 6-foot tall Broadway sign next to it of marquee light bulbs and big marquee letters. That is all closed because of this thing I feel like you've heard of called COVID-19, ruining my life. But here we are. And so a dream came true October before the shutdown of going inside a Broadway theater. I finally convinced one of the theater owners to give me the keys to the castle. And so in October, we opened our first official interior Broadway tour, which is inside Broadway's oldest, which is the Hudson. That is also our only tour that is not currently available as an in-person tour because the theater's closed. But there are exterior tours. If you find yourself in New York City doing the tourist thing, a staycation, living your life, join us for a tour. In a mask, socially distanced, or we have lots of virtual tour options on our website as well. So check all that out. Everything in my life that you want to know, BroadwayUpClose.com. You should check that out after we're done here with Jonathan today. You should wait and then do that after. March 12th, 2020. If you joined us before, you know this is the day that kind of the bottom fell out and our lives fell apart. And I thought it'll just be a couple of weeks, and then a couple of months, and then 6 months, and then a year, and then now even longer. So it's an insane time to be alive, but we're making it through one day at a time, one day closer. This idea, I thought, will occupy my time. We'll do one Broadway theater every week. We'll do a video every single day. There's 41 theaters. There's 41 weeks. That sounds insane, but it'll get us through. And then here we are, week 27. Can you believe it? The Samuel J. Friedman. I hope you enjoyed stories of arson and glitter and demolition and nudity. The Samuel J. Friedman certainly maybe one of the more underappreciated theaters, but one of my favorites. So I hope you enjoyed it. How's today going to work? For today, we'll learn all about Jonathan's journey, his time working on Choir Boy at the Samuel J. Friedman. We'll also talk about all the other fancy stuff he's done because he's very fancy. If you have any questions for him or me along the way, drop them in the comments. And if you haven't already, if you're joining us live, comment and let me know where you're watching from so we know where our stories are going today. And so, without further ado, happy Saturday noon on Broadway, and join me in welcoming Broadway's Jonathan Burke. Hello.
Hey, what's
How are
up?
you?
I'm
Here
good.
we
How are
are.
you?
Oh,
Here
just
we
living
are.
a global pandemic, beautiful Saturday. What are we doing with our lives? But here we are.
Yes, indeed. We're
Are
doing
you?
this.
We're doing this, just trapped
Yes.
in these rectangle boxes for a year of
Yeah.
our lives. You're like, what are we doing? This is why we're all Zoom experts now.
Right.
Tell me, where are you? Where are you stationed right now? Where are you? You're not in New York City anymore, I don't think.
Well, I am in general. It's just at this
Sure,
moment I
sure.
came home for the holidays, which is Maryland.
Nice.
I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, but right now I'm right outside of DC at my brother's home for the
I love that.
holidays. I need
Good
the
for
family
you.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yes, for sure. I think this will be the first Christmas my entire life that I won't have gone home for family, where me and my French Bulldog Belasco are just like hanging out in New York. And I was like, it'll be weird. It's going to be weird. But like this whole year has been weird. So it's what we're doing, I guess.
Yeah, I've only missed, I think, one when I was on tour with Cats before,
Okay.
and the only reason I was able to come this time is I had to do all these tests, and there's certain restrictions that my parents are, making us do, which I'm willing to do in order to keep them safe, and my
Sure.
grandmother. So I have to, quarantine, take 3 tests, and then I'll get to go to their house on Christmas Day and Christmas Day Sunday.
That's I actually am obsessed with that. I love that
Yeah,
they're being so diligent. I mean, that's how we get through it, I think. That's how we all are alive at the end of this somehow.
right.
Okay, so for those who don't know you, will you tell us, okay, we know you grew up in the Maryland area. Will you tell us when you first got exposed to theater, when you realized theater was like a thing in your life that, oh, I love this, or this is interesting. And then when that turns into maybe this is something I could do for a career, get us essentially your entire bio, your entire life before you get to New York City and start auditioning in your life professionally.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I have a very specific and distinct time in which I decided I wanted to be an actor, and that was actually in sixth grade, Baltimore City. That's where I grew up. Baltimore
Okay.
City at Cardinal Sheehan School. There was a teacher named Kenyatta Hardison who was the drama teacher, the choir teacher, and she had me. Well, I chose to audition for the choir that they had. I always knew I could
Okay.
sing. I liked singing in church and things like that. I never really thought about acting, but I knew I could sing. So I did that. And when I auditioned for that, she was like, well, you have to audition for the musical that we do every year. And she had created this musical called Motown Spectacular. Before
Okay.
Motown the Musical on Broadway, she wrote her own musical. And
She's like, they stole my idea. So where are my
where are her
royalties?
royalties? Right?
Where are my residuals? I'm
Yeah,
still waiting.
exactly. So she had me audition for that, and I got into that, and I played Stevie Wonder, and a few other parts. But specifically, the first night of the performances, I was singing My Sharia More by Stevie Wonder. And
Sure.
I came out, started to sing the song, and the audience literally started screaming in the middle of the beginning of the song. And by the end, it was standing ovation. And I was just like, oh, wow, I can get used to this.
You're like,
I'm
a
gonna do
star is
this. I can
born.
be an actor. Literally. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna be an actor. From there on out, I was like, I'm gonna be an actor. So
Wow.
she had gone to this performing arts high school called the Baltimore School for the Arts, where Jada Pinkett Smith went, Tupac Shakur, Christian Siriano, a ton of famous people attended the school. And so she recommended that I audition. So I ended up auditioning for that. I went there, Baltimore School for the Arts, where
Wow.
I majored in acting. And while I was there, after school, there was a program at a community theater in
Mm-hmm.
Baltimore called the Arena Players Theater, which is the oldest Black community theater in the country. And they had a youth program. So I would go there after school and do musicals with them. So at school, I was doing classical theater, straight plays. After school, and in the weekends, I was doing these musicals at the Arena Players Theater. So I did that all through high school, and then I decided to go to Ithaca College, where I got a BFA in musical theater.
Wow.
Loved it there, and then the week that I was in New York City for our showcase, we do this thing where the students come and they audition for agents and managers
Sure.
and things like that in New York City. That week, I auditioned for the tour of Cats, and on my way back to Ithaca, they called me while I was in the car and told me that I booked it. So I was cast as Mungo Jerry in the
Come
Cats tour,
on.
and before graduating, I was so thrilled. I mean, this industry is just, you never know what it's going to
Crazy.
be. So to know that I had a job from graduating I was thrilled. So after graduation, I went on tour and I did that. And then when that tour
Crazy.
ended, yeah, I came to New York
You, it
City after
feels,
that.
it feels, I don't know. There's something about you that it feels like this was all like predestined. It feels like from the groundwork. I don't know. It just feels like you were like, and then this happened, and then my teacher was like, "Well, you should go to this school," and then I got to that school, and then you were like, "I'll do this," and then yeah. And as you say, in this business, nothing ever happens, in what feels like a straight line. And I'm sure personally it didn't feel like that. But from the outside, it feels like you have this kind of spark and the world recognized it. And then it was like, all right, let's do this. This is perfect. And it all works out. Is that what it felt like
Well,
getting to this first Cats job?
absolutely, absolutely. It felt like everything was in alignment with, what my destiny, what my purpose was meant to be. I knew that when I was 11 years old, and nothing was going to stop me from doing
Yeah.
that. And thankfully, I had very supportive parents and family that allowed me to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful to them, and
And are they
teachers
any
that really
theater?
inspired me.
Any theater on the
No, not
family
at
tree?
all.
You just
No, no, not at all.
you just
All
started
business.
singing and business. Okay. Sure.
Business people, CEOs, money, finance, all kinds of stuff like
Right.
that. But my father had an amazing singing voice, I will say. And
Okay.
I always say I got that from him. And he always said to me that he was so grateful that I was able to pursue my dream because he wasn't able to pursue his dream of singing because in that time, his parents were like, well, you got to get a job. You can't go
Right.
be a singer.
Yeah, we're not.
Well, you have a great voice, but okay, what are you really going to
Yeah,
do?
we're not.
So I
Yeah.
kind of was able to, you know, do the thing that he had wished he could do, and not in any way to put pressure on me. He was just grateful. If you want to do that, do that. I support it, and so now I want to continue his legacy on.
That's incredible. I'm obsessed with that. That's really beautiful. Okay, so then Cats happens on the heels of that like beautiful legacy moment. Okay, now you're in a Cats costume and it's Mungo Jerry. And does
Yeah.
it does it feel we've taken a turn, but did it feel that I'm always curious the first big job? I mean, because it's Cats, right? It's an iconic
Yeah.
musical. It's on the tour. You're playing this role that people have heard of. Does it align with what you thought that first big job of someone's giving you money and you're not the only one who thinks you're talented? Someone else now has said you're talented. I will pay you to do this. What
Yeah.
is that moment like? And what is it like to do Cats right out of the gate?
Yeah, you know what? Cats was one of the first movie musicals that I ever watched at Cardinal Sheehan School. Kenyatta Hardison played it for us in our music school, and I was obsessed with it. So I would watch
Great.
it at my home all the time, and I dreamed of being in it one day. So
Yeah.
the fact that it was my first job outside of college felt serendipitous for me. It
Yeah.
was absolutely incredible. Flash forward to the original Old Deuteronomy is Ken Page. Terry
Sure.
Mann was Rum Tum Tugger. Flash forward to my future career, I've worked with both of them in two different shows, one on Broadway, one at the Muni. They are friends of mine. It was a full circle moment to be able to sit next to them and like sing a line, do lines with them. I mean, it
Yeah.
just was. This was meant to be. It felt so. Being in Cats playing Mungo Jerry, it was a true dream come true, and it just felt right.
Wow. And the physical demand. So, okay, you go to school, you're doing the acting, classical stuff, you're singing from the age of like a fetus. And where does the dance come into it? I mean, because Cats is you have to dance. Had you
Yes.
danced at Baltimore School of the Arts, or where does that you're you just one of these people who's like, I'll figure it out, give me a Cats costume, and then you did and you're amazing.
Well,
Are you one of these? Are you one of these people that we all hate? That you're like, oh, and backflips. I'll figure it out. Give me like a minute.
there is
Gosh,
an element of that. I will say, I always was
sure.
naturally a mover, a dancer naturally. At the Baltimore School for the Arts, they did not allow us to cross pollinate within singing or acting. They kept it very strict. So I was only
Wow.
able to do acting there. So it was at this after school program where we did musicals, where I just kind of like looked at what was going on. They were like, "Oh, do this. This is a ton. Do this is," and I'm like, "Okay," and I would just like do it, like. And so I would learn on the job if you call it, as a youth.
Sure.
And then my senior year of high school, I did take my first ballet class because the high school had a children's after school program for middle school students. I asked if I could take a class with the 8th grade girls that were doing this after school program because I needed to audition for colleges, and I knew that you would have to do dance and ballet. And I was like, well, I've never done that. Let me prepare myself. So I asked if I could do that. And so I danced with the 8th grade girls after school in ballet. Then at Ithaca, I finally had like formalized dance training because I was at a BFA. So Mary Corsaro was a dance teacher there. She was incredible. She took me under her wing. She saw something in me, and she really helped train me through that. I was her dance captain for like all the shows throughout the 4 years, which was very helpful. So I just really started focusing on dancing more in college, which led me to Cats. When I look back at it now, I'm like, what was I doing? I look at the Cats choreography now, and I'm like,
how did I
I had so much energy. You know, I was young. It was like, what do you want me to do? I'll do it.
Yeah, it's those first jobs where you're like, well, I don't know. You were like, yeah, I'll do that. You never had a thought like, I wonder if I can even do this. No.
Right.
I mean,
no,
now we're old and
you have
now
so much confidence.
Now the fear is there and you're like, who am I to think that I can do, but you're like, no, when you're 22, you're like, put on a leotard and cat fur.
Absolutely.
That sounds great.
It's a beautiful thing. It's nice.
I wish
people
you could
get back to that.
Correct. I wish we all, the more and more I talk to people who are very successful, the more they're like, I wish I could channel, but it's for whatever reason, it's so hard to channel that just naivete of like the confidence and naivete of 22, 23 years old, just out of college. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Okay. So you do Cats for how long? A year, 6 months?
10 months, 11 months.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now you're in New York City for the first time and you're unpacking your like Cats swag bag at auditions and doing that whole thing. And then what happens next?
Well, I started auditioning and I randomly got a call one day that there was an audition that day. I think it was that day for an immediate replacement in an off-Broadway musical called Langston in Harlem about Langston Hughes. Written by the amazing Kent Gash and Walter Marks, and Kent was directing it as well. And I went to this audition. At this time I was still non-equity, so the Cats tour was non-equity. This was an equity show. I auditioned that day, and I started rehearsal the next day. I booked it, and I got my equity card. I joined this cast of these amazing people that I had watched on Broadway. Now I was next to them doing a show with them, and it was thrilling. The show was phenomenal. It changed my life in so many ways doing that show. It connected me to so many people that actually got me to choir boy on Broadway. Honestly, I really do not know if I would have been there without the things that I did, with this show Langston in Harlem. I mean, the director connected me with Terrell McCraney later in life. And Terrell became a great friend of mine, which then let me be in a way. I mean, like knowing his work and knowing he didn't, of course, give me the job of choir boy, but knowing him and knowing the work and the lineage, the lines of that was pretty strong.
Wow. Incredible. And Langston Hughes in Harlem, is that the name of the show? Langston in Harlem. I don't think I didn't see it. Is it a play? Is it a musical?
It's a musical. A musical.
It was. Okay.
It was amazing.
Incredible.
It's phenomenal. It should be on Broadway. Someone make Langston in Harlem happen.
Okay. There's still time. There ain't nobody doing anything right now. Let's make it happen.
Maybe I could play Langston this time. I was too young then.
You're like, I'm a little older and wiser now. And so getting your equity card, did you feel, because this is like a big decision nowadays in people's lives, did you have any reservations of, if I take this card, I can't do any more non-union tours or anything like that? Or is it the world is telling me this is where I'm supposed to do and I'm going to take it and it'll all work out?
Yeah, for me, it was the latter. I mean, there were people in my ear, of course, that were said, well, I mean, there are a few people that said that kind of you'll have less opportunities maybe because there's more non-equity work and it's easier to get work in that arena. But most people were like, no, you have to do this. This is a sign. And inside I knew that it was meant for me. The way it came about, I felt ready. I felt excited. And I'm so glad I made the decision. It was a great decision for me, but it's different for everyone. And I understand that completely. So everyone's
Yeah.
on their own journey. That was my journey at that time to do that.
Boom. And okay, so then already like, okay, you're doing the show in New York, you got your equity card, you're on Cats. Do you feel at any moment in this time, or do you even feel at this point in time, having done a couple Broadway shows of incredible caliber, do you feel like you've made it? Did you have a moment where you're like, this is my version of checking a box and making it? What do those words mean to you
Oh,
as an artist?
well, that's tricky. To say I've made it, I don't know about that. I have achieved some amazing goals.
Sure.
Absolutely, I have realized that there are moments when I stand on certain stages or sound stages and I say, thank you for allowing me to be here. I know there was a lot of work that I put into this, and now it's really coming to fruition, and I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
So that is a version of making it. I achieved goals that I want. Of course, there are still more goals to be achieved.
Sure.
So I don't know if I ever get to the point where I say, I guess I made it. There's always
Sure.
more. So, but I do feel like I did accomplish great things. Yes,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm always
and I'm
intrigued.
happy.
There's this like, yeah, which is, I think the best result of that is finding happiness in what you've accomplished, knowing you're going to accomplish more. But I always love this reconciliation moment, especially of you're watching Cats, you're seeing Ken Page, and then now you're sitting next to Ken Page doing a scene with him. The reconciliation moment of that, of like trying to process that as a human, or having these ideas of what making it is, and then getting older and being like, well, what did that even mean? I love the ideas of our youth and our naivete meeting our successful careers, and how what that car crash of ideas is like. So well said. I love that. Okay, so then you get your equity card and you're like, I'm killing it. Here we go. Life is good. And then what that leads directly to Choir Boy. Is there many more years? Choir Boy is your Broadway debut. Tell me
There's
everything.
Wow, it's a lot. Now, this is where the line starts zigzagging. So let me tell you the
Great.
story. Sit
Sure.
back for a second. No, so after I did that show, I started to do a lot of regional work all over the country, different theaters, and I did several more tours. I did a Christmas Story the Musical tour, which was the out of
Yeah.
town pre-Broadway tryout tour. That Mary Poppins tour and Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat tour. I did all three of those
Crazy.
within the
Wow.
next several years. And then I cast in my first Broadway show, which was Tuck Everlasting, the musical on Broadway, which Terry Mann was in, who was Tom Tugger and Cats. So that was my
And
actual
this is
first
how
Broadway
you
show.
know Neil Haskell.
This is
I
how I
don't
know
think I
Neil
had
Haskell.
I don't think I
Yes,
had put that together, because I was like, Neil, you know him? And he
yes.
was like, yeah, I know him. But I don't think I put that together necessarily. Or if I did, I don't remember.
Well, this is
Okay.
probably the reason because I got cast. It was a dream. It was a 1 day audition, literally 1 day, no callbacks. They called me an hour after I left the room and said I booked it, and I was kind of like, "What?" I mean, normally there's a journey to this type of thing,
Yes.
so I was just really shocked, but very grateful, and I was excited. So we get to rehearsals. It's going great. Love the group of people. 2 days before we go into the theater for tech, we're doing one of the final run-throughs in the studio. I was rehearsing a piece of choreography and I broke my foot doing it. So I was put on medical leave for 2 months, and the show only ran for 2 months. So the week I was meant to return to the show, it closed. So I never actually stepped foot on the stage for the show in which I created this original Broadway cast. Um, this role in the ensemble I was in for the
Oh my
show.
gosh.
So that's
What's the mental, let's navigate that mentally. Now that we're years removed and we could probably do that from a safe space. Did you go insane? Tell me everything. I mean, is it,
let me tell
you're going to
you,
make your
it
Broadway
was
debut, you're killing it, and then your body's like, we're not going to do this, literally break a leg and bye. Like, how do you
actually.
navigate that?
Well, of course, when it first happened, it was devastating. Immediately, I what does this mean? What does this mean? But even within those 2 months, as that time was going along, I said, I have to kind of learn something from this. What am I taking from this? And I will say what I now gathered is I was doing this musical called Tuck Everlasting. I was in the ensemble dancing in this musical. That is something that I love and it's great fun and that I enjoyed. It is not the absolute ultimate vision that I have for myself as an artist. I always saw myself as a principal role, as acting in a piece that involves singing and dancing as well, but being in the forefront. I mean, I'm just going to say I saw myself in that light. This show did not have me in that light. So I said, you know what, there's a reason that I wasn't introduced to the Broadway community in this way, because I'm supposed to be shown in a different way. There's something else that is going to be for me that feels completely and utterly organic and right for my life and my story. And that came later in Choir Boy. When I got cast in that, I said, this is all for a reason. This is why that happened in the way that it did, so that now I can be in this play about a Black gay boy in this world, finding himself, being who he is, which is basically my story, and then stepping into the leading role in a play on Broadway. It was no better dream come true.
Yeah, because I saw Choir Boy twice, and when the first time I saw it, you were in your first role, and then when I came back to see it, you had taken over for Ferris, and I love that you say this, that sometimes I think people are shy to say, like, I love being in the ensemble and I love being part of the mix of it all, but I think where I fit best is front and center, being the driving force of the story. Sometimes it takes a lot to say that in a world where people are like, oh, he got an ego and all this stuff. So I love that you say that. And then to not know you, but watch you in Choir Boy in these two things. And when to see you as Ferris, it was magical, and it was really emotional, and it was really vulnerable, and it was really beautiful. That's why I was like, I got to get this guy on. I mean, it's like, it was really, I mean, you're really a talent. And so it's interesting to see you in one show, to do a role that's more of the ensemble, and then to step into the spotlight. And so how does that happen? How does Choir Boy happen in the first capacity? And then how does that translate to now you're crushing it center stage on a Broadway stage at the Samuel J. Friedman?
Well, I'm going to take it back to the story about Kent Gash, and that is the reason. So Kent Gash was doing a regional production of Choir Boy in 2000, I think 15 or something like that, 14, the fall of 2014. And again, it was one of these situations in which someone quit the show last minute. It was like a week before they started tech. He knew me from Langston in Harlem that he directed. He called me and said, are you available to come be in Choir Boy, this play in DC at the Studio Theater? I said, absolutely. Thank God I was free. I said, yes. I've been dreaming of doing a straight play. I've never done one. Yeah. This is a play with music, but it's still a straight play. And that play in particular, I dreamed to do. So immediately, and it was in my hometown, basically. So it was nothing better. So I went, I did that at the Studio Theater. Terrell McCraney was there during the process, still making rewrites to the script. He's a good friend of Kent Gash's. So I got to know him there. Then he and I became good friends. And he asked me to,
is this production of Choir Boy at Studio Theater is the first production? Is this a world premiere? I don't know enough about the history of the play prior to Broadway.
It had been off Broadway at Manhattan Theater Club in 2013. This was a regional subsequent production. That was not in affiliation with Manhattan Theater Club at all. It was its own thing at the Studio Theater, different director, different choreographer, different arranger, whole different group of people. But Terrell was still a part of it because it had yet been slated to go to Broadway or anything like that. So he was still working on the piece, hoping one day, I'm sure, that it would go to Broadway. So then he asked me to audition for his new play called Head of Passes at Berkeley Rep. So I auditioned for that, and I got cast in that. So that furthered our relationship. Flash forward to 2018, when they announced that Choir Boy is going to Broadway. I was thrilled for my friend and all my friends that were involved, because Jason Michael Webb was a friend of mine. It was a group of people that I was close with that I knew were a part of it. And I was just there for them. I didn't know whether I would be a part of it. I thought perhaps my days as being a teenager were gone. I didn't know really necessarily, but I just was happy for the people. And I called to audition.
Yeah.
I then auditioned for one role that I didn't end up getting, but then they kept calling me back for different parts. And then they were like, well, they were using Jeremy Pohl from the original cast already. They already knew that. So they were calling me for the understudy for Ferris. When I had done the show regionally, I had played David, which is opposite Ferris in the show.
Right.
And so I had never
Crazy.
done the role of Ferris. My thought was, oh, I'll be David maybe if they do it. But then they called me for that, and I said, actually, I would be a great Ferris. I never really crossed my mind until they called me and said, we want you to audition for the understudy for that. And I said, I can do that. And so then we went through
Which is crazy because having seen you do it, like, how could you not have seen yourself as that?
I don't know. I don't know either, because having stepped into it, I felt like, oh, this is actually the role for me. It actually came to so much of fruition of truth and of me and my journey. So it made complete sense. So, then I got cast as the ensemble understudy, and I was thrilled to do that. I mean, I was excited to be a part of this show. And then a couple of weeks later, they called and said that Jeremy was going to have to move on to do Ain't Too Proud at a point, and if the show were to extend, he would no longer be there because he had to start the next show. So if the show extended, I would be stepping into the leading role permanently as the replacement. And I pretty much got dropped. What? I did not know that when I auditioned. I had no expectation of that. I was happy to be where I was. But when they told me that, I said, oh, that's going to happen. I know that's going to happen. When they said it, I said, that is going to happen. I'm going to be the lead on Broadway in this play. And it did. They announced that we extended, and I stepped into that role, and it was incredible.
Crazy.
It was incredible.
Trinity Bird, captain. This is a comment that has come in that says, Choir Boy was such a powerful and unexpected delight. This play needs a film version. That, Trinity, you are correct.
I agree. I agree.
Yes. You were the dance captain with choreography, Camille Brown, right?
Camille Brown, amazing. Oh, I love and adore her. And being the dance captain, I think in that show in particular really prepared me to step into the leading role of Ferris, because I had this leadership role within the company already. Sure. And Ferris, the character, is the leader of the choir. So it all kind of came together in a way that was really brilliant, and it was amazing. I love those boys. And we still have group text. We talk all the time.
Oh, good. I love a good show group text years later where you're like,
of course, I have
still drop into that group text and pick right up where you left off. What's it like the first time you're on for Ferris? Do you remember that moment? Was there the calm before the storm? You're freaking out? Tell me everything.
Let me tell you, the first time I went on was the week after we opened.
Okay.
Jeremy got sick. The week, leading up to opening is so much that we put into ourselves. We're draining ourselves. This is a lot. And so, I'm sure he was holding on. He was in rehearsals for Ain't Too Proud already. So he was doing the most. And so I'm sure he just kind of, his body was like, okay, you've done enough. Mm-hmm. And so the week after, mind you, we had just begun understudy rehearsals. We had only gotten through probably like a quarter of the show in understudy rehearsals of me learning the track of Ferris. I knew my track. I didn't know everything that Ferris did except for his choreography. I knew that, but I didn't know, everything else. So we hadn't rehearsed the whole play, but they called me that morning and said, you're on tonight. And I said, okay, great, let's do it. I was excited. I felt prepared. Thankfully, I had done the show before. Thankfully, I was the dance captain, and it felt like I was ready. And I was not freaked out. When I got on that stage, it felt like home, and I did it. And I felt very accomplished after. My parents came up. Thankfully, they're close, so they got to take the train and come and see it, and it was amazing. It was
my gosh.
And in the evening. It was 2 shows that day. It was two. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
What a what a crazy moment in your life. If that, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it was
crazy.
crazy.
That's wild. That's incredible. Okay, so then Choir Boy finishes. You kill it. You're the closing Ferris in this moment, and then does the world go, look at this kid, let's put this kid in The Inheritance, let's put this kid in other shows? Is there a minute where nothing happens? Tell me, I'm always curious, this moment after you have led a Broadway show on a Broadway stage as the dude, and then the show closes, what happens?
Yeah, it opened many, many doors. It changed my life. People saw me, as I was saying before, in the light that I always saw myself,
Yeah,
finally, I think.
yeah,
And I was so grateful for that. So I have to say it was actually nonstop from that. I actually got
yeah,
cast in a play called Tony Stone before Choir
yeah,
Boy
that's
ended, I
right.
think. I think it was before Choir Boy ended. I got cast in that, and that was at Roundabout Theater Company, and Camille Brown choreographed that as well, and I was her dance captain for that. So I
Come
went into that the
on.
next month, April. I started that, and then while I was doing that, I was also playing a principal role in that, which was great. And then while I was doing that, I auditioned for The Inheritance, and I got cast in that, and that started rehearsals before Tony Stone ended. So I was doing double duty, rehearsing that
Yeah,
during the day, doing Tony Stone at night in August, and then I did The Inheritance up until the shutdown. So it was
crazy.
pretty nonstop.
Talk to
Yeah.
me. Talk to me. Tell me everything about The Inheritance. It changed my life. It was one of the end of part one is still one of the most emotional moments I've ever had in my entire life in a theater. What
Yeah.
was it? I can only imagine what it was like to go through that every night in this epic, like what, 7.5 hour 2-part thing. What was it like to rehearse something of that mammoth scale? And then what was it like building this fabric of these men together? Well, and Lois Smith, but like this main group
The
of
legendary.
men, the legend that she is. What's it like to build this rapport with basically no set, where the story is really just you guys and your bodies telling the story? Tell me everything.
Well, that's what I love so much about it. And that's the kind of work that I love to do really the most. I mean, even in Choir Boy, there was no set. We had two benches and a chair. The Tony Stone, there was no set. We had risers that were like bleachers and a chair. Like
Right.
I love work that it's about the artist, the
Yeah.
storytelling, the characters, the connection between humans, and using your imagination. I love. So that is the work that I gravitate toward. Work that is about community
Yeah.
and there's ensemble pieces. All of those pieces are largely ensemble pieces. Sure, there's a focus of a person, usually one or
Sure.
two, a few that it focuses on, but it could never be done without the group. So when I heard about the inheritance, I immediately thought that I need to be a part of this. I
Yeah.
had gotten an audition for a workshop of it, but I couldn't audition because I was doing Tony Stone and it overlapped with like the time so of our
Sure.
rehearsal. So I said, I can't be a part of this. But there was no announcement for Broadway at that point. But I said, if this ever comes around, I'm going to be a part of this. Flash forward to a couple
Yeah.
months later, they're like, okay, it's going to Broadway. You have another audition. I said, oh, I'm in it, done. I know this is for me. I have to be in this. And I did.
Gosh.
So, yeah. And so when I did that, when we got in that room, the energy amongst us was just so fantastic. It's such a great group of guys. Everyone was willing to open their hearts, their minds. Even the ones that had done it before in London, there are a few that had done it. They
Yeah.
brought a new, fresh eye to this experience. They did not carry anything, which was a fear a little bit of the new people, that we were going to have to fit into a mold of what it
Of
was.
course.
But the
Yeah.
show is so much about individuality and community of the people telling the story that thankfully the director, brilliant Stephen Daldry and Justin Martin, the associate director, allowed us to really find our way of telling the story. And so it became ours. And it was hard,
Wow.
absolutely. 7.5 hours took so much focus. And we were on stage basically the entire time. So that was an exercise in focus, if I've ever had
Yeah.
one. But it was worth it because everyone was brilliant. I loved watching everyone every day. I could learn from everyone every day. The story is so engaging Matthew Lopez obsessed. Like
Yeah.
he's phenomenal. And so it was a great experience. And being able the end of the play, the story that we're telling, the end of part one, I played an integral part in that portion of it, and I just felt such a sense of honor and gratitude to tell that story and to have these people's spirits live on and to see and feel the energy of the audience each night going through that
Yeah.
catharsis, those who had experienced it, those who didn't but were empathizing, sympathizing with it. Uh, it was I've never felt anything like that before. I mean, that is
Yeah.
why I do theater, to touch people's hearts, to have people grow, to open people's minds. And that was what we did.
Yeah, it's these moments that you strive for, one as an artist, and two, really, I think as an audience member. I think anyone who's in love with theater, you go for this moment of telling a story as simply as possible with incredibly talented people and great writing about something that's emotional and important, and maybe a story that hasn't been told in this light or fully to a different generation who didn't live it. And you walk out of a theater changed. I mean, the shell shock of the people walking out of part one of that Ethel Barrymore theater. I don't know that I've ever. I mean, the Normal Heart on a similar thing did that, but this, it was. I don't know. It felt different. It felt more epic. It felt more real. Is the wrong word. It was more emotional. It felt different. Yeah, I can't even imagine. I mean, I'm going back to like what I experienced sitting in a red velvet seat, watching it and not even up there doing it. So I can't even imagine how the pride you must have taken in your work and the show and the reaction the connection you were able to make. You had to have walked out of work, I hope, on cloud nine out of that theater every day. I would hope, maybe.
Absolutely, absolutely. And to be at the stage door and to speak with people that lived through it or people that
Yeah.
just expressed gratitude to us for telling that story, which was the same experience I had for Choir Boy as well. I mean, the amount of people that would come and say, I have never seen myself represented on a stage in the
Yeah.
way that I did in Choir Boy, and to thank me for that, there's no better feeling. And that was the same exact experience with The Inheritance. And that is what I love, love, love about live theater, which we
Yeah.
miss so much, but we will have
Remember that?
again.
Remember when we were allowed to
Yes,
sit next to each other in a space and we were allowed to like touch each other? One day we'll be able
yes,
to just actually be with other humans again. We have one
we
question from
will.
Trinity about this end of part one moment. He says, "Can Jonathan talk about those amazing men at the end of part one? How did that work? I'm also curious. What an amazing moment.
Mhm.
Also, I saw The Inheritance one exact year ago today, and that's Trinity. Yeah, he came by our
Oh,
gift shop. He
oh
had come on a
wow.
tour a million years ago, and I was like, Trinity Bird, you brought your students 8,000 years ago. He's like, I can't believe you remember that. I have a steel trap. Welcome, Trinity Bird, to my life. Okay, so what's part one? What is that? How? Tell me where those men came from. Were they hiding in the walls? And I guess there's a spoiler if you haven't and you don't know The Inheritance. This is a spoiler, so
This is a
earmuffs.
spoiler, so cover your ears at this point
Yeah,
if you plan to see The Inheritance at some
right.
point, which I hope you do.
Yeah.
So that was the like biggest secret on Broadway, I think, of the season.
Yes.
These guys, amazing artists themselves, they're actors, all of them that auditioned for this show, to represent those that we, lost. And they actually were on a kind of separate contract of their own,
Yeah.
but they would have to come to the theater. They didn't have to come until I think like the second intermission because there were two intermissions for each part.
Yeah.
So they would come in the second intermission. They had their dressing room in a certain area of the theater, and they would all be there. And then they would sneak upstairs to the theater outside, literally go outside. I had to do that too as my character for that part because I
Uh-huh.
would come in through the house, and they would sneak up there, and then they would come out and share this beautiful, beautiful moment. They were so necessary for the play.
Yes.
I mean, it added everything that you needed for this story. And so I think they're all amazing, and I'm so grateful for all of them for being troopers and being a part of it and telling the story the way they did.
Right.
as
And
well.
were any of them understudies? Were any of them like, while you're here
Some
in
of
the
them,
building, why
yeah,
don't you also cover?
there were six, I think five or six of the guys that were our understudies as well. So six of them were with
Okay.
us from rehearsal, you know, basically from the beginning and every day of rehearsal that were
Right.
understudies for us as well as these other men. The rest of the guys were not understudies at all. They did not rehearse with us from the beginning. They came to rehearse that portion, you know, once we
Yep.
got closer to coming to the theater. And that was their only duty was to do that. But the others had to be at the theater. The six that were the understudies for every part two, part one. I mean, you know, the entire time because they
Right.
were in the
Wow.
company.
And crazy. Okay, so then on the heels of
Yeah.
that, COVID-19 happens, life shuts down. You go from like, I'm gonna put words in your mouth, but like this beautiful, like crazy artistic commercial on Broadway, but artistic moment. And how could it be better than that? It's the buzzed about play that could win the Tony if the Tonys, all of that. And then March 12th happens, and then and the show closes earlier than anyone thought, and now it's COVID-19. So now where mentally have you been at during all of that? And on the heels of the longest question that ever existed, in my apologies, Tom says, to tack on, I was front row center for part one, wrecked. Welcome. We love Tom. He says, what have you been doing to maintain your creativity during the past 9 months on the heels of this first moment where our lives shut down? And
Absolutely.
go.
You know, that was such an unbelievable moment. I mean, unprecedented. We never thought it would happen. There was something that was a little sweeter than others about our experience because we knew that we were going to close soon. So it wasn't quite as devastating that we were closing
Right.
because we were already preparing our hearts and minds to move forward to something else. We did not intend for it to be that day that it happened, but it was going to be later that week. So we were already getting
Right.
ourselves together. But we did not get to say that goodbye, which was really that a formal, official, that closure that we all want. So that sucked. But throughout this time, in the beginning, I was focusing a lot on COVID relief, doing work that was raising money for people in need during COVID, doing monologues and songs online, fundraising, things like that. A lot of it was focused toward that. And then there was an explosion of the Black Lives Matter movement, which kind
Mm-hmm.
of shifted my energy toward that.
Yeah.
And all of my work kind of was focusing on, again, raising awareness for that through plays, readings, monologues, songs, same type of work. I find that my artistic expression is the best way for me to be an activist. That's what I know best. That is the way that I can reach more people. And so I like to call it artivism. For me, that's my word
Sure.
that I call it, art mixed with activism, artivism. And so that is what I've, really been doing during this time. And
Yeah.
recently, there's been some pieces that have just been about art for art's sake. I get to a place where we can do something that is to uplift joy, something to bring
Sure.
joy back, that kind of stuff. But there's always a reason. There's a story behind it all. For me, any art I think has to have some purpose greater than just frill. I love work
Yeah.
that has some depth to it. So it can be fun, but it also has some sort of message. So I've been doing so much of that. I've been doing some teaching as well, master
Good.
classes,
Good.
Q&As and things like that.
Sure.
And personally, I mean, I've home workouts all the rage. I just did one this morning before getting on this Zoom. At home
Great.
workouts, learning Spanish, writing. This is a time that we're able to create work. This is a time I've never
Yeah.
had to do something, and we got to create things for ourselves these
Mm-hmm.
days if no one's going to do it for you. So I've been writing some
Good.
pieces. Hopefully, those come to fruition. And yeah, that's the kind of
Good.
stuff that
You're
I've
like,
been doing.
oh, just all, just a little thing here and there. Who are you? Come on. You're like, habla español. You're like, come
Well,
on.
look, we hope that this time brings change for the industry, in
Yeah.
so many ways. TV, film, theater. this is a time of reckoning that we hope the whole culture has changed and that
Yeah.
when we get back, it's stronger and better than ever. So hopefully
Yeah.
everyone's doing that work at home.
Yeah, and I think that's what it is. It's doing the work now and finding the joy amid the pain and finding some way to create and get through this. And then when we get to the other side, I genuinely, from the moment this started, I said that somehow we'll come out of this and we're gonna flourish and it's gonna be more glorious in probably ways we don't understand because we've never had a moment like this, specifically, I think, for the world, but definitely for our industry. And I think it is. I think it's perfect. It gives us all a good opportunity to, self-reflect, both as artists, both as humans, and then learn some Spanish too.
Yes.
Yeah, because why not? You're
Absolutely.
really incredible. Yeah, you're incredible. The amount of good, nice comments that people have written about you, we could share them all, but we might be here for another half hour. But I'm going to just pick a couple. I don't know if they know you. I don't know if I don't know. Cynthia Stokes is such a well-rounded young man. So proud of you. Like Cynthia, yeah. I mean, it's got to, Chris says, so proud that Jonathan's work during the pandemic and Black Lives Matter reflects his social consciousness. We like Chris. Cynthia's yelling again. She says, I just love hearing you speak about your story. Your outlook on life is grateful. Love it. You got some good people in your life, it sounds like, and we can see why. You could see, and I saw from the moment I saw you play Ferris was like the first moment that I was kind of brought into your work that you're really, you're doing something special. You're a really interesting light, I think, amid an insane industry. So congratulations on everything that's happened thus far. It sounds like you're doing all the work that when you come out the other side of this, you're going to be thriving even more so than you were pre-pandemic, if that's possible. And so congratulations on your successes on this journey, getting you to this place. It's so nice to meet you and get to know you a little more as an artist. And good luck with the rest of this. And thank you for spending a little piece of your Saturday with us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your words. It's so kind of you. And thank you for this platform. Thank you for what you're doing for the industry. This is wonderful. People need this. So thank you as well.
Little history,
awesome.
Little fun facts, little life. If people want to follow you, is Instagram, is that the best way that if people want to connect with you as an artist through your artivism, which I love?
Yes. Instagram is great. My Instagram is there it is. It's Jonathan Burke. That's me. Boom. And then if you follow my Facebook page, it's just Jonathan Burke. I have a fan page there. And Twitter is @it's John Burke. But Instagram is where it's at.
Okay, good. We'll find you on Instagram and then we'll funnel from there. You're incredible. Like I said, good luck with the rest of this and happy holidays. Enjoy a nice, safe, COVID-free holiday with the family. And on the other side of this, we'll see you. I'm sure we'll bump into each other in Times Square in our neighborhood once we're all back to normal.
Yes, sir.
Boom. Congratulations and thanks again. Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday. Bye.
Bye. What a light. I mean, what a light of a human. I didn't know him before this. I had just seen his work and we had mutual friends and I was like, I got to get this guy on. Like, this is what an interesting career. And you can see, I'm fascinated by people's upbringing and where they came. And so you see, some people, they just do musicals and he starts with Cats, but then he's doing this classical stuff in high school and then he's doing plays. And you're like, well, of course, because you have this entire thing building up to this moment and then you're given an opportunity and then you knock it out of the park. And so what a special a light that I think you should keep an eye on. I know since I saw him in Choir Boy, you're like, what's this guy up to? And then you see him in The Inheritance and that changed my life. And I just thought it was one of the most emotional things. And so if you haven't seen any of these, if nothing else, I don't think either The Inheritance or Choir Boy were ever recorded, but certainly the scripts exist. And so if you find yourself with some downtime, order a script online, find a small retailer that maybe is an Amazon, maybe Drama Bookshop online or something, and grab a copy of one of these scripts because it's, I think you'll see kind of how he fits into the narrative of it all. It's pretty special. This week, like I said at the start of this, it feels like it's been 37 years this week, but also it's only been 7 days since I saw you last. Thank you for joining again. The Samuel J. Friedman, like I said, is one of my favorites. And so I was really excited to get to this week and talk about the insanity of this building I actually just interviewed yesterday, doing research for our Christmas in New York Radio City tour that we're launching tomorrow. I'm finishing up all the research on this, and I talked to the guy who landmarked all of these theaters. His name is Joe Rosenberg. And this is the man who spent his time in his apartment in Brooklyn, getting the city to agree to landmark these buildings and keep them safe and to keep them historical and to keep them for us. So future generations later would have something to witness these stories told within the walls where they originally happened. And then also to give me something to talk about with my business that just talks about these 41 Broadway theaters. And so it's, to meet these people who are the fabric and the connection of the whole thing is, it's pretty wonderful, and I don't take anything of it for granted. And I hope to be a vessel or a channel to these people who you might not otherwise know. I didn't know too much about Joe, and then when I came to find him, I was like, oh, you've changed New York City. You single-handedly have been instrumental in so much of what exists and what people love about Broadway in New York City. And so I'll channel a little bit of him tomorrow, as he also saved Radio City. So I hope you can join for that. I think I have one ticket left for tomorrow's virtual tour. That sold very well. Thank you. Your support means the world. And then Playbill, we're doing the tour in collaboration with Playbill, of course, on Tuesday night. And then Wednesday, we have another one. So 3 times this week to do our new Radio City Christmas in New York tour, the tree lighting, the history of Rockefeller Center. It should be a lot of fun, and we'll see how it goes. I don't know. I've never done it before. So if you join us, you'll let me know how it goes. If you want souvenirs, as always, we're wrapping up, it seems, all our holiday sales. I have a couple more to do right after this and get out to the post office. But our online gift shop, BroadwayUpClose.com/souvenirs. Marquee ornaments that I didn't think any of you were going to like, but you're all obsessed with, which makes me obsessed with you. Those, I'm finishing the last of those today. And so 20 more sets of those will be available on our website. I hope tomorrow, if not Monday, I'll post about that. So, you guys have been asking about that. And so I promise I'm working my little tush off to make that happen. As always, all of our Instagram, all the ways to follow us for more Virtual Broadway Tour, at Broadway Up Close is the way you can follow us. Facebook, while you're here, give us a like and get all our information there for more of this journey and beyond. And then for souvenirs, you can always put Broadway 5, gets you $5 off in our gift shop should you want to buy anything that we ship out to you. You guys have been wonderful. As I've said every single day through this entire thing, I wake up every day and I say one day closer to Broadway. We have no idea when that final goalpost is, but with a little bit of optimism every single day, a little bit of joy in our lives, and a little bit of theater in whatever format we're digesting it, whether it's here or a live stream or whatever, we'll eventually get to the other side of this, and I think it'll be glorious. So thank you for being any part of this journey. I love you all. Happy Saturday, and I'll see you on Monday for our next theater, week 28. We're literally going just across the street to the Brooks Atkinson, and we'll see you then. One day closer. I love you all.